We're going to start today by showing you a short 3-minute video just to give you an agenda. Then the 5 of us are going to speak about the World Trade Center Health Program and the Victim Compensation Fund. And the most important thing I think all of us want is help us spread the word. There are so many people in the 9/11 community who still aren't aware of the free health care and the compensation that they're entitled to. The most common reason is that they think it's for first responders only. And while we, of our 20,000 clients, of course, most of them are firefighters, cops, sanitation workers, construction workers, volunteers, there were 300,000 office workers in Lower Manhattan on 9/11 and during the 8 months that followed. There were 25,000 students and another 25,000 teachers. All these people are eligible. Oh, let's not forget the residents, the downtown residents. We're going to try to give you this information. Let's start with the video and we'll come back to you on the other side of it.
The first thing that I hear from the non-first responder community in Lower Manhattan is, look, I'm sick, but I don't deserve anything. I'm not a first responder. I just lived here. I just studied here. I just went to school here. I just raised a family here. Your presence here was an act of courage and resilience. The first responders, I'm in awe. But I also am in great awe of those who came back to a war-torn neighborhood that was clearly toxic. We knew it, but you stayed anyway, and you allowed this area to grow and to become the hub. But it's your courage and your resilience that brought this place back. So please, I urge you, access what you are owed.
Over the last decade, we have all fought very hard so that everyone has access to the health care that they need. It is very important that every community member who lived anywhere south of Houston understands that you are covered. You are part of the group of people that have guaranteed health care if you have a 9/11 related disease.
I was on my way to work when the first plane hit. I was working for Goldman Sachs. I actually worked for them for a total of 21 years. I always thought that those programs were geared for the firemen and the police officers, but I'm one of the victims of that.
So we have taken on, with all of these advocates here, the task of trying to get everyone to understand that they have rights, and it is imperative that they sign up.
My law firm represents over 15,000 people in the 9/11 community. And the majority right now are first responders, but every single day we hear from more and more survivors because we're doing this outreach. Basically, to be entitled to compensation, you need to prove that you were below Canal Street or on the Fresh Kills landfill, either caught in the dust cloud on 9/11 or for 24 hours during the month of September 2001, or for 80 hours, which is just 2 full work weeks between 9/11 and May 30th of 2002. And you need to get 2 people to sign an affidavit attesting to the fact that I saw him. I worked next to Joe. I went to school next to Francis. That's all it takes. There's a reason why my firm takes all this so personally. I have 6 young people who work for me who have lost a parent or a spouse as a result of World Trade Center toxins. 9 people in my law firm, including me, are cancer survivors. The information you get from us is going to be compassionate, and it's our pleasure to help you.
Let's start with the map. Let's let everybody see what Senator Gillibrand was referring to. And by the way, most of that video was shot at a seminar we did at Borough Manhattan Community College last September. Remember when we actually used to meet in person? That was really a thing. People would come, fill up an auditorium. You can't do that right now, so that's why we're doing the webinar. But out of the 1,000 people who showed up that day, most of them students, but many of the teachers, many of them were janitors and people who worked in their kitchens. And it also attracted people from Pace University, New York Law School, and there were 12 public schools south of Canal Street. Well, we ended up signing up 650 people into the health program. And Liam will talk about the health program in a minute. But if you look on the left side of this map, you're going to see all the people that we represent. People, I mentioned Borough of Manhattan Community College. We represent dozens of former students from Stuyvesant High School, dozens of people from Chinatown, American Express, Citibank, American AIG, Goldman Sachs. We represent 123 people with cancer. And then for the Staten Island landfill, it was mostly the police, of course, and the sanitation workers who were there. But all these people, the 300,000 office workers, the 25,000 downtown residents, and the 50,000 former students and teachers, you are all eligible. And as our hero, Jon Stewart, said, and by the way, he really is our hero. He would hate it if he heard me say that, but without him, this legislation that we got passed last July, which extended the health program and the victim compensation fund until the year 2090, that's 70 more years, it never would have happened without Jon Stewart. One of our clients was Detective James Zadroga. Jimmy was a 34-year-old, highly decorated police officer with the NYPD. After 9/11, he spent dozens and dozens of hours around the perimeter, also at the Fresh Kill landfill. He developed a horrible pulmonary illness called pulmonary fibrosis. It's also known as black lung disease. Jimmy died at age 34. They did an autopsy in New Jersey, and in his lung tissue, they discovered ground glass, asbestos, chromium, lead, benzene. These were all known carcinogens. So as tragic as Jimmy's death was, at least it gave us, and it gave doctors in the medical community, the medical evidence that was needed to link all these pulmonary illnesses and what is now 68 cancers. And you don't have to prove that your respiratory illness or your cancer was caused by your exposure. There is a presumption. So you can see these cancers. Lee, would you take us through some of these cancers and tell them what we're seeing the most of?
So in the 9/11 community, and the biggest part about why the Victim Compensation Fund was extended till 2090 is the fact that there is still hundreds and thousands of people that don't even realize that they qualify for the Victim Compensation Fund and the World Trade Center Health Program. You know, anytime I signed up a Goldman Sachs employee who came down with a very severe cancer, they didn't realize, wait, I thought this was just for cops and firefighters. I didn't realize I qualify also. They worked in the zone from 9/11/2001 to May 30th of 2002. They breathed in the same dust. And the reason why we bring up skin cancer probably 4 times throughout this presentation is because people don't even realize skin cancer is covered under the bill. So when you have basal cell, squamous cell, melanoma, these skin cancers are much more aggressive in the 9/11 community than they are, if you weren't exposed to these toxics and dust. So other than skin cancer, prostate cancer, breast cancer, thyroid cancer, the skin next to your thyroid right here is the thinnest. That's why survivors, students, teachers, mailmen, they were getting sick and diagnosed with these horrible severe cancers. And that's why we've lobbied so hard to get this fund extended, because we see day to day how these conditions affect us.
Dom, would you talk a little bit about the deadline and the fact that it's been extended and what normally happens?
There are different deadlines depending upon what type of claim a person files. The VCF recognizes 2 kinds of claims. Dana and I will be chiefly speaking today about the deceased claims, but there are filing deadlines for all claims. For a deceased claim, the rule has changed for the moment. People have until July of next year, regardless of when somebody passed away as a result of a World Trade Center illness. Even if a person passed away 6-7 years ago, the family may file a claim today and will be able to file a claim anytime through July next year. After that, we don't know exactly. In the past, the rule was that a family had to file within 2 years. We expect that that will be the rule again after this extension, this window that they created when they reauthorized the act. They created this window. When the window expires, we think the rule will go back to 2 years. But anybody who did not take advantage of the VCF for their family in the past, because they didn't know about the deadline, they didn't know that they had the right to file a VCF claim, may do so until July of next year.
Yeah, we'd be a little insensitive if we didn't address the current health crisis. Before we went on, we were talking about this and how our careers have really been bookended by 9/11 on one side and today's health crisis on the other side. And it's a real tragedy that so many of our clients with underlying 9/11 respiratory illnesses, with compromised immune systems because of their cancer and the chemotherapy and radiation they had to endure, they are dying at a higher rate than many other people. And it's so heartbreaking for us to, I mean, we've already lost 25 clients due to COVID. So those of you who do have an underlying health problem, whether you've had cancer or respiratory problems, I urge you, listen to the CDC, wear a mask at all times, social distance, stay at home as much as possible until this thing passes. Terrific. So I mentioned that when Congress passed the Zadroga Act, they created both the Victim Compensation Fund and the World Trade Center Health Program. And we are honored to have Liam with us today. Liam, would you please tell us about the health program?
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Michael. So like Michael said, when the Zadroga Act passed in 2010, it created two programs. So the World Trade Center Health Program, that is administered by NIOSH, and the Victim Compensation Fund that is administered by the Department of Justice. So the health program is treating 9/11 related conditions, and then the Victim Compensation Fund is that financial piece. They're related, but they have separate application processes. So the World Trade Center Health Program provides health screenings and treatment for responders and survivors. And I know that Michael and Lee have talked a little bit about the differences between responders and survivors, but first responders were anyone who volunteered in the Rescue, Recovery, and Cleanup Act. That includes volunteers from the Red Cross, construction workers, firefighters, police officers, and then survivors. So survivors are anyone who lived, worked, went to school, visited the area as a tourist on the day of 9/11. We're talking retail workers, cab drivers, office workers, residents. Those are all categorized as survivors. And so the World Trade Center Health Program, going to give a little bit of an overview, provides annual medical monitoring visits and treatment for conditions that the doctors in the program have certified as a 9/11 related condition. And there's over 100 different conditions that they have deemed related to 9/11 exposure, and about 68 or plus, they're adding conditions too, 68 cancers, but they're adding conditions all the time. But anyway, the World Trade Center Health Program covers medical tests, doctor visits, surgeries, prescription drugs at no cost. And they even provide benefits counseling. So we went over the conditions a little bit, but there's a lot of airway, digestive disorders that are covered, and then also mental health conditions, which is really important. These clinics in the World Trade Center Health Program have very comprehensive mental health care. Really, really fabulous programs. And so it's not just physical conditions, it's mental health as well. And for responders, there are about 7 clinics in the New York metro area that are part of the program. That includes North Shore, Mount Sinai, NYU, Stony Brook, Rutgers, out in New Jersey. But then there is a nationwide provider network that provides care in all 50 states. So as we speak right now, there are responders and survivors being treated and cared for across the country. So you do not have to live in New York State in order to receive care. We know a lot of people, the average age of a responder is and survivor is increasing, right, as time goes on. So we know that people are retiring, and there's actually a pretty robust program and clinics down in Florida, Arizona, North Carolina, but all over. And I just want to highlight one thing about the eligibility. So for responders, the area is south of Canal Street, but also includes the Staten Island landfill, barge loading piers, the office of the chief medical examiner. But then for survivors, it's south of Houston Street, into a slight area of Brooklyn Heights as well. And again, it's for anyone who lived, resided, attended school, cleanup worker, and other, I've worked with a lot of janitors, custodians that cleaned up the buildings in the surrounding area. We know that there was a lot of World Trade Center derived contaminants in the surrounding area. And they also have clinics in the New York metro area, but again, survivors can be treated in any state as well. You have to get your condition certified in the health program in order to then complete your process in the VCF. So you have to be in the World Trade Center Health Program, get your condition certified in order to successfully file a claim with the VCF. So the two programs are related, but they have separate application processes.
Liam, I'm so touched that you were willing to do this for us. I can't tell you what a valuable asset NICOSH is in general, and you are in particular, to the 9/11 community. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Michael.
All right, so Lee London, would you please tell everybody about the benefits of the Victim Compensation Fund once you are certified with a 9/11 illness by the health program?
So when I explain to clients that on one end you have the World Trade Center Health Program, and on the other end you have the Victim Compensation Fund, both programs have been extended until 2090. And the best part about the Victim Compensation Fund are the different benefits available. So there are monetary awards for pain and suffering for your cancer. I've had many firefighters, cops, survivors, teachers that worked in the zone that taught mathematics, got diagnosed with severe cancer and couldn't complete their job anymore. 50-year-old teacher ready to work the next 20 years, we can make a loss of earnings claim for them with the Victim Compensation Fund. One of the biggest factors of the Victim Compensation Fund is out-of-pocket medical expenses, also directly related to a cancer, if you had, or non-cancer condition. So if you were in the exposure zone for the right amount of hours and you were diagnosed in 2006, and then all of a sudden you join the Victim Compensation Fund today, all of your out-of-pocket medicals that weren't covered by insurance that you paid for, we can get reimbursed for you through the Victim Compensation Fund. Going back to the monetary awards for pain and suffering, nothing will make you whole again. That's what I always tell my clients. No amount of money is worth having these types of conditions. But the Victim Compensation Fund does award for non-cancerous conditions up to 20 to 90,000, skin cancer, basal cell, squamish to 90,000, and very severe cancers, going up to 250,000 to 340,000 based on severity. The best part about the Victim Compensation Fund is that you don't waive your future legal rights. So if you get diagnosed with asthma in 2015, and then in 2022, you get diagnosed with severe thyroid cancer, you can amend your claim for an increased award and keep moving forward. It's not like just you accept it now. The Victim Compensation Fund understands that many of these conditions will happen later. It's not about how you feel now. It's how you're going to feel 5 years from now, 10 years from now. That's why we encourage everybody who is in the exposure zone to join now. This is all tax-free. If all of a sudden you get diagnosed with a stage 4 condition, you've never joined this program before, the Victim Compensation Fund put in a terminal expedite process, and the Victim Compensation Fund can give an award in less than 2 weeks.
Lee, that's a great segue to our wrongful death team. Dom and Dana, would you please talk to us about that and explain how does it feel, do you think, to someone who's dying, who knows they're going to die, to get an award and know that their family is financially taken care of?
When a person passes away from a 9/11 illness, in addition to the money that they were entitled to, that they may have collected or may not have collected for pain and suffering in the past, they get a second award for pain and suffering because they passed away from a 9/11 illness. If there are dependents in the family, a spouse, children, or others that were being supported by the deceased person, they are entitled to an award themselves directly. Typically, that's a $100,000 award for each of those people. The family is entitled to recover for what the VCF calls replacement services, meaning that if the person that passed away was helping around the house, was helping their dependents, doing things for them, shopping, cooking, doing chores, anything, driving them around, and now they're not around anymore to provide those services. You have to do it for yourself, or you have to hire, or you have to go without. Well, you're entitled to some compensation to pay for those things, and they call that replacement services. The VCF will also award families for the funeral expenses, burying or cremation, or whatever is the type of funeral that the family chooses to have. They pay for that too. And then, of course, as Lee was saying, if the person's life was cut short while they were still working, then the family is entitled to receive lost earnings to replace the lost earnings because the person passed away. Those are all categories of damages that make up a deceased claim. And Dana will discuss with you what we think are the prudent things to do in order to protect your family so that those benefits can be available for you should this ever happen.
Thank you, Dom. Michael asked the question, how does it feel to someone who has been diagnosed with a terminal illness to know that there is going to be something for their family? And it is sometimes their singular comfort as they're going through the worst time of their life. And when that diagnosis comes, they often ask us, what now do I have to do? What should my wife know? What should my children know? What should I do now? And the thing, if I impart one thing to you, it is that families must plan. It's going to be better. It's going to be easier. The compensation will come faster if families think about this and plan for it. So that's the first thing, is talk about this. Make sure that your family understands that the Victim Compensation Fund does have something called a deceased claim, and it is for families who've lost someone. Don't let them discover it on their own, because by that time it might be too late. They may have missed the deadline. Have that discussion. Get your proof of presence in order. Reach out to your witnesses. Get the employment affidavits, the employment verification letters. A lot of companies will go out of business by the time these affidavits are needed. Don't wait for that, and don't leave it to your family, who is often not in the best position to determine who the best witnesses are and to gather the proof of presence. And a lawyer can help you. A lawyer can help you to put that proof of presence together, even when you're well, so that it's there for you when it's needed. The other thing is so important is get a will. Everyone should have a will, and for all of us in the 9/11 community, it is especially important. It's going to make the VCF process for your family go more smoothly. You will get to name your executor, and the executor is the person who's going to have the right to bring the Victim Compensation Fund claim. You can decide who that's going to be. If you don't have a will, it's going to be according to statute.
Dana, thank you. I did want to ask, because one of the common questions I get is, oh, I can't afford a lawyer. Can you explain what the government did to allay this concern for the 9/11 community?
What the VCF has done is limited attorney's fees to 10% of the award. That means that there can't be anything extra to get you appointed. There can't be anything extra in order to return to court if that's necessary to have the award distributed. It is 10% of the award. If there is no award, there is no legal fee. And so there's really no reason not to seek out the help of a lawyer.
Thank you, Dana. And one last thing, Dana mentioned how important it is to get a will and a healthcare proxy. We feel so strongly about this that we do it free for our clients. Because I'll tell you, after 9/11, after the Deutsche Bank fire, we were involved in so many disputes among family members, all who loved the person who died and may have loved each other at one point before money became an issue. But it's just so unnecessary to put your family through a fight when you can do a nice, easy, simple will and choose who's going to be the executor of the estate, who are going to be the beneficiaries. Don't leave it up to your family to fight about this, please. There are plenty of good lawyers out there who do estate work. Take advantage of it. Perfect segue to the last slide, which is what should you do now? Obviously, register for the health program. Number 2, register for the Victim Compensation Fund, even if you're currently healthy, because at that point, you've locked in the date. And if, God forbid, down the road you get sick, you or your family members don't need to be worried about, oh, I got to register within the deadline. So take care of that now. The third bullet point is, even if you're currently healthy, it's like a life insurance policy. Get that proof in order. You can either give it to a law firm that'll file it for you, and it's there on the government's website. God forbid you ever get sick. But even if you, as Liam was saying earlier, even if you just have GERD or sinusitis, register, get your proof of presence. Lee, I'll let you be the nag about this fourth bullet point.
So yes, see a dermatologist. It's the number one aspect that I tell every single one of my clients, people that just call with questions, even if they're perfectly healthy, and I say, get a skin check.
Can we go to Hillary now? Hillary, are there any questions that people have submitted?
We have a few questions here. We can start with this one, which is for both the Victim Compensation Fund, the VCF, and the health program. So how long does the entire VCF and health program process take in general?
Yeah, so when you apply to the World Trade Center Health Program today, and assuming that you have all of your supporting documentation in place and it's submitted, it takes about 4 to 5 weeks, possibly even longer. I know you guys could tell me better than I could, but in my experience, it takes about a month for the health program to get back to you to determine whether you've been enrolled. Once you've been accepted into the program, you can schedule your first monitoring exam with the doctor, and hopefully that will not take time, but some of these clinics do have some wait times and have historically been that way. So it might take a few weeks to get an appointment. But once you get an appointment, the ball really starts rolling where you're able to get your condition certified.
I have a question from the audience here. She says, I am already your client. I am a certified survivor and I'm in the World Trade Center Health Program. I have submitted my proof of presence documents, employer letter, 2 affidavits by May 2020. How long does it take to hear from the VCF once a claim is filed?
Just to reiterate, once everything is submitted, and assuming you've already been certified by the health program, it generally takes 12 to 15 months to get an award. The exception being if, God forbid, you're diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, your doctor says unfortunately you're terminal, we can expedite the claim and get you an award in 2 weeks. And that's what we want for all of us, God forbid that ever happens.
So we have another question from a client we all know and love. I I won't say his name, but he knows us. So he says, Lee has brought me all the way through the VCF and World Trade Center Health Program, including my award. In regards to my eventual passing, does my wife only need to call your firm to handle a wrongful death claim if applicable? Or is there anything else I need to plan for that has not been already done?
Assuming you have a will, all your spouse has to do is call. But please don't wait. If you've been diagnosed with a terminal illness, please call us so we can talk to you, because we don't want to hear it just from your wife. We want to talk to you and tell you that everything's going to be okay, and we'll take care of your family.
Our next question is, someone I know died in 2008 of prostate cancer. I know he worked near the World Trade Center towers. Is it too late for his family to apply?
The deadline has been extended to next July, July 2021. It is not too late. That family may file a claim now.
Yeah, and by the way, I have to give credit to Rupa Bhattacharya. She's the special master of the Victim Compensation Fund. When we got this bill extended last July, she realized how many people must have missed the deadline because either they didn't want to take money away from responders or they didn't know about it. So she extended this till next July for all those people, all those family members who lost their loved ones after, in the last 15, 20 years. So take advantage of this, please.
If I join the World Trade Center Health Program, can I keep seeing my personal doctor?
Yes, you definitely can see your personal doctor. There's no restrictions on that. This is for 9/11 related conditions. So you have to get your condition certified with the World Trade Center Health Program, but you can still see your normal doctor for any other conditions. So it doesn't, interrupt that care. This is just would be a separate process.
Liam, am I right though in what I'm saying now is that let's assume you really love your pulmonologist who treats your asthma. You can continue, your private health insurance would pay that doctor, but once you're certified with asthma, then the health program will pick up all the co-pays and deductibles. Is that right?
I believe that is correct. Yes.
Good. Okay, great.
Another question. What if my cancer was diagnosed in 2018? Are there restrictions on diagnosis dates?
They're called latency periods, but if it was a blood cancer, as long as it was diagnosed more than 6 months after 9/11, there's a presumption it was caused by the toxic exposure. As long as your thyroid cancer was diagnosed more than 2.5 years after 9/11, again, a presumption. And for the other 66 cancers, if it was diagnosed after 9/11-05, that's just 4 years after the towers collapsed, all those cancers are considered related. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to have doctor's letters. A lot of doctors don't realize the connection, and they certainly don't recognize there's a presumption linking all these cancers. But you know what? In all cases, reach out to an attorney who does this all the time. Reach out to NICOSH, who does this all the time, and they'll give you the straight answer. I just want to say thank you so much, Elizabeth, for inviting us to do this. I want to thank all of you for listening, and the message today is spread the word.